65 toss power trap. That might pop wide open, Rats.
Welcome in, everybody, to the TPT podcast. We have a big time guest, a Chiefs Hall of Famer, an NFL Hall of Famer. So excited to have him on the podcast. Will Shields, welcome into the podcast. Everyone's excited to see you on. How are you doing? What's been going on with you lately? We're excited for you to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, man. I'm doing great. Can't complain. Keeping busy, that's for sure. You know, we got to work every once in a while, so that keeps me on my toes.
You know, that's great to hear. Big time for the Chiefs. Big time for the Chiefs right now. This time of year, going into the playoffs with this AFC Championship. Of course, you know a lot about the playoffs. You are obviously a great player for the Chiefs. Talk a little bit about, your experience with your Chiefs, your time with the Chiefs. You were with some of the best times the Chiefs had, from the Montana years when you first came in, and then all the way up to the Dick Vermeil years, and even the Herm Edwards years with Larry, those guys. So talk a bit about that.
I got a chance to go from full extremes, from one extreme to the other, because I was drafted by Marty Schottenheimer, which was a defensive guy, which he was building great defenses at that point. But it was strange because we brought in Marcus Allen as well as Joe Montana and all those guys on the other side, and tried to add a little offensive firepower to a strong defense. But it was just interesting actually talking more coaches' philosophies of how they did different things. And I think that's what was really unique about the time that, I got a chance to play with the Chiefs, because we started with a defensive-minded quarterback coach for a long while. And basically it was, hey, you scored 3 touchdowns, we should win the game. So, another team should score 21 points. And then you had, we actually had Gunther was the next coach. And Gunther was all about speed, as fast as you can go a million miles an hour, get things done, that kind of stuff. And then after that, they brought in Coach Vermeil, and Coach Vermeil was more offensive-oriented.
Offensive-minded guy.
Basically, hey, outscore them. Every time you touch the field, you should be thinking, how many plays can I score in, kind of thing. And to me, I think he was one of the first coaches I've had since, college that really believed in, hey, you put up a lot of points. It makes life hard on the other side.
Right.
And then I ended with Herm, and Herm was back with defense. He's more of a defensive guy, being a DB of, hey, we want to hold them. We still want you to score, but just not as fast. Sort of a combination in between, slow it down. So I had a chance, I think, before Mahomes got here, we were the last team to actually, play in the playoffs, not necessarily say we won a playoff game, but the simple fact being one of the last teams to play in a playoff before, they got back to their glory days where they're playing now. It's like, 5 in a row, 4 or 5 in a row that they're games in a row. It's one of those things that it's very rare for some teams. And then when you get that feast or famine going on right now, which is awesome. But it was really cool, the simple fact of being able to say that you got a chance to start and end your career in the same place, which is one of the things that were a blast, to be able to say that, you spent all your time in one place and got a chance to love the city and the city love you back, kind of is one of those things that you really love about being a professional athlete, but also just saying they paid you to play a sport, which is one of those unique things within itself.
Yeah. And again, you touched on it perfectly. For you, at least, different Chiefs players, they kind of went through, different coaching or, different guys coming, especially if guys, if they were in the early parts of, Todd Haley to Andy Reid, you went from, again, Marty Schottenheimer, defense, Derek Thomas, those guys on that defensive side of the ball. Then you go to Dick Vermeil, is like, you guys are going to get out in front. We're going to give Priest Holmes the ball, and we're going to go. And one of my favorite teams, I was a kid, I was a very, very young kid at the time, but I go back and I watched every single game, the power of YouTube, going back and being able to watch games, older games, was that 03 team. You guys, you had a great season. You play the Colts. Talk a little bit real quick about that '03 team, because you guys were, in my opinion, that team should have won a Super Bowl. You guys were that team. I think one of the greatest teams in Kansas City Chiefs history. Some people try to say, "Oh, this team should have won a Super Bowl for the Chiefs," and every single time, I wasn't around. I wasn't, really able to experience it in person. But just watching the old tapes, I'm just like, that team was special. Trent Green, you, Priest Holmes, Dante. Talk a little bit about that team.
Well, I tell you, that was a fun team to be on. I mean, one thing about it is, when you can walk out to a huddle and you look at each other and you basically put your fingers up and say, okay, how many plays do you want before we score? You're picking play 4, play 5, play 6. Sometimes you're like, let's go 2, let's go 3. We're trying to sort of be on the field and say, how fast can we get to the end zone? And, it's one of those, cool feelings to be able to walk on the field and know that any given play, one guy can take it as long as you do what you need to do. And that was sort of that moment that they're in now. They get that opportunity to know that, it's not just one guy. It's whoever gets the ball gets the opportunity to get in the end zone. And I think that's one thing that sort of rubs off on your teammates. You give them that confidence, you give them that swag of saying, hey, man, I know you got one today. I'm going to get one tomorrow. Next guy is going to get one. And as long as you're celebrating with each other, it makes life so much easier than having just one guy that wants to touch the ball and be the guy. I mean, everybody wants to be the man, but it's easier to say, can we do it as a team? And I think that's what makes this team so unique right now is that, they gave the keys to the car to Mahomes and said, hey, you go out here and just distribute as much as you can to make it happen. And good thing about it is, that's the engine that makes everything run, I think, right now.
Right. Because, if you look at it, you touched on it a little bit a minute ago, is the last time we saw that electric offense, it was you on that offensive line. You had Willie Rove. You had a great offensive line. You had Jason Dunn, who's an extension of that offensive line. Guys getting out and blocking. You guys, in my eyes, are one of the great, those years right there, you guys were one of the greatest offensive line of all time. Obviously, having a guy like Priest Holmes help getting out, and you got, he broke records that season. In your opinion, what was your favorite game from that '03 season, or just your best memory from that '03 season that you can look back and be like, that was the time where we just kind of were like, we were a great team that year?
Well, I think there was a lot of different games that you had, moments in it that where you're like, man, I can't believe this happened, or I can't believe we did this, or this was supposed to happen and it did. I think '03, probably Raiders in Oakland was a game that was a lot of fun to play in. It was a blast. And we were sort of clicking on all cylinders at that point. Even even playing the game in the playoffs was one of those games that you could taste it. It was there. You could have pulled it off. One thing gonna fall your way and it would have happened. It seemed like that game, whoever had the ball last or made one least mistake was gonna win it. And that's sort of proven itself to be true. But yeah, that season was a blast. The simple fact of leading up to it was the day one that, Coach Vermeil walks in the door and he's walking you through his game plan. And it's one of those things that, it's like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. Oh, this guy's
right.
But he started throwing numbers out. He started throwing this guy, and then he started pulling out film of, hey, I had this guy when I won the Super Bowl, and guess what? I got another guy in the room that's just as fast or faster. Hey, I've got this. And, the way he sort of put it all together to make you believe in what he was putting the science behind it. And to me, that's a big key of, hey, once you put it out there and you see something happen, you can do it over and over again. And I think most people didn't realize that, hey, having Coach Reed here now is the same as having Vermeil back then. Coach Reed in the NFC, he played in what, 5 champ games there or 4?
Yeah, five. Yeah, he's first.
Most people don't think about that. I mean, they never got the big game, but he was always in it. And that's something that you need when you have a coach that's that good.
Yeah. Looking at the Chiefs now, the offenses, are similar. They don't run the ball like you guys did, of course, but just the type of explosiveness in even losing Hill, the type of, production they've had. A lot of people this offseason, probably thought, oh, they're not going to have the same productivity losing a guy like Tyreek Hill. But of course, you touched it. The guy who drives the car, drives the engine of this team, Patrick Mahomes. Going from the 03 Chiefs to the Chiefs now, a team you guys played in 03 that stopped that winning streak was the Bengals. So you probably do have a little bit of bitterness towards the Bengals. They have beat our Chiefs. I know my hands get a little sweaty thinking about this AFC Championship game. In my opinion, it's going to have to start with the O-line. Obviously, you're here. We would really like to get your opinion on this offensive line. You talked about a little bit at the beginning. You came in and your first quarterback was Joe Montana.
Yeah.
These guys come in. You got guys like Creed Humphrey. Orlando Brown's still a young player. Trey Smith. They come in. They're staring at the MVP and the Super Bowl champ, and they got to have the confidence. Maybe switch things at the lines or have the confidence to block for a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Talk a little bit about what these guys on the offensive line have to do now for a guy like Patrick Mahomes. He's got the limped up ankle. And then a little bit about you're coming in and you're staring Joe Montana in the face, having to, be one of the guys on the offensive line then.
Well, right now they're sort of doing the same thing that I was doing as a rookie. You're sitting here looking in the huddle, and you're looking at guys that you've seen and you've been a part of. But the difference is, these are guys that are 15. They're older in their years. They don't have the youth behind them, but they're still amazing guys, amazing players. So,
right.
They're walking in the door going, and your coach's first thing he tells you is whatever you do, don't get them hit. So, that to me is the biggest key for these guys this weekend. Whatever they got to do, they got to keep him from getting hit and keep him from having to actually run a lot to get things done. And to me, that's going to be the most important piece. But yeah, they still got that mindset of how do I survive? So they're still in survival mode. This is year 2 for a couple of guys in the middle.
Yeah, year 2.
Year 2. So they're still going to try to figure it out. Last year was a great year. They got to a certain point, but now it's another level. It's how do I raise that level and raise that bar every year? And I think that's where their mindset has to be going into this game is that, we've got to protect a little better and we've got to get those things a little better. And we also might have to run block a little bit better because we might have to lean on that a little more to get to where we want to go. And I think that's one of those pieces that, as a challenge for the team, you challenge them of saying, hey, our guy's a little banged up, time to rally, time to make sure that we can keep him upright so that we can go ahead and win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And Patrick Mahomes' bum ankle. His game is, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the pocket, which a lot of people don't realize. The Chiefs are 12-0 when he throws 90% of his passes from the pocket. A lot of people don't realize that. They see these plays where he's looking like Curry on a football field doing all these crazy things, but he has the limped ankle. And you said, they're going to have to get the run game a little bit. You go into every game thinking we don't want Mahomes to get touched, but that's in your mind even more with the ankle because, in 93, let's not forget Joe Montana went out of that Steelers game. He went out, and that next week you had the Houston Oilers talking about, before the game, we're going to knock Joe on his butt. He's 37 years old. We're going to get to him. So I know in your head, you're thinking, I really got to keep Joe clean because, we're in Houston. They're going to be coming after Joe Montana. He did get a little banged up in the beginning of that game, but at the end of the game, he was throwing dimes to Willie Davis, putting that game away. What are some of the things you think? Because there are some concerns about on the offensive line now. They are a great run blocking team, but they're having a little bit of problems on the third and short. Is that scheming with Andy Reid? Is that just Andy Heck on the offensive line, some miscommunications? What do you think it is on some of these third and shorts? Is it the running back? Well, what's your thoughts on some of the third and short plays where they're not able to move the needle on second and short or third and short?
Well, sometimes you got to think, are you doing too much? Are you trying to put in too many things or do too many things? We always say that thing, keep it simple, stupid as best you can so that you can get what you're going to get. If you got one guy you think could dominate to the other side, that's what you do. If Kelsey can get open, which usually that's part of the thing. If you go to Kelsey and they double him or they grab him or they do something of that nature, it makes it tough. So sometimes you got to use that first guy as a decoy and make sure that you do the other thing to make sure it works. So if I got a dominant right tackle or left tackle, let's utilize that if you have to. If they're going to load the box, you know what you got to do. You got to get to the edge if they're inside heavy. So those are things that you try to figure out what they're going to do before it happens. And I think sometimes we sort of do a little, maybe a little too much, and we don't have, the speed guy that runs the little speed out like we did over the years past. And you
like a Jamal Charles.
Yeah, you run that speed out with Charles or Hill or whomever that one guy can't stay with. And I think that's one thing I think our young tight ends, as well as our other guys, are going to have to show up big. So every play that goes to them, we need them to make a play because that's something that they're not counting on.
Right. And we've seen a lot of analysts over this week saying 12 personnel, 13 personnel, 14 personnel for the Chiefs. Do you think that's something the Chiefs need to run more 13 personnel, 14 personnel? Or do you think it's plays at the line, some things that's, disguises, and then boom, they get it to a guy like Jerick McKinnon, Pacheco? What are some of the things that, you would like to see the Chiefs put out there on Sunday?
Well, to me, it's a conglomerate of everything. You put out the best, healthiest guys you can put out there to make things happen, and you want to take advantage of the matchup issues. Do I have a tight end I think that can make a linebacker have a rough day? Those are the matchups that you got to exploit. How healthy is Tony if he comes into the game? Is he healthy enough to be that difference maker? Can Juju show up a little bit? Has he really been dominant like you want him to be as being one of the group? Those are things that you're going to have to put into play. But, I always start with, the O-line play makes a big difference, but also put him in the right position. If we have a lot of RPOs, it's going to be, a little tougher because you're always worried about being down the hill or down offside and further down.
Offside.
And that's one thing that makes it hard when you're watching the game because you're like, "Ooh, was that really a run play or what? Did he just see it and just throw it out there?" And that's the options they have. But I think a couple of those you got to settle in and sometimes bow up your neck and just let our running back take it at them because I'm pretty sure they're going to start the game off testing our tight end, our DBs for sure, and they're going to test our line to see, can you hold up? Because they like to run the ball. It's going to happen, from that and play action.
Yeah. And speaking about running the ball, the thing I find so cool about you is you played during a time where it was probably the best years for Chiefs running backs. You go from Marcus Allen, even later on, Troy Richardson, he was a running back for a little bit until he moved over more to fullback, Greg Hill. And then you go to Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson. Who do you think, they need to ride the hot hand? Pacheco got hot late in the season. It's looking like Clyde can make a return in this game. And even Jerick McKinnon. Who do you think is best suit for this type of Bengals defense? We know they like to, switch things at the line. They switch a lot of things pre-snap. Who do you think they need to ride with the hot hand, best suit for this Bengals defense?
I don't know if there is a hot hand. I think the simple fact of it is they're interchangeable, which makes it unique within itself.
Right.
They're pretty interchangeable guys. I mean, I like Pacheco, get him in there, let him, bang it up in there a little bit, but also like the speed, to be able to get to the edge and do some different things. So I think they, use a plethora of them in different positions and let them go out and show their talent. Because I think that's what makes them hungry is the simple fact if you do rotate them through a little bit, they be like, oh, I got to prove what I can do. So, because I only might touch this thing once or twice. So I might as well try to make it work because if not, I'm not going to touch it again. So I think that's what they've done really well is being able to spread the ball out a little bit.
Yeah. And again, you got guys where you can put in, because Jerick McKinnon, a veteran guy, wasn't doing much in San Francisco, and the Vikings comes over to Kansas City, the last month of the season, 9 touchdowns, super productive time with the Chiefs. And again, Pacheco, 7th round pick, guy coming out of nowhere. As much as I do, guys that can come out of nowhere, a guy like Priest Holmes, he was undrafted. All of a sudden gets on the Chiefs, he's with the Ravens, gets on the Chiefs, really gets an opportunity and goes off. The running back play to me is going to be the biggest thing for the Chiefs. How much can these running backs take off of Patrick Mahomes trying to run in the pocket? You talked a little bit about Kelsey. There's people going around saying that the the Bengals had around their facility pictures of Travis Kelce saying, touch Travis Kelce when you walk by him, because that's what's got to happen on Sunday. You played with a guy like Tony Gonzalez, one of my favorite players of all time. I talked a little bit with Eric Warfield. What are some of the similarities you see with Tony Gonzalez and Travis Kelce?
Yeah, I think their size, being, bigger tight ends, being agile tight ends, being able to move in space very well. They're similar in how they're built, how they run, how they do things. Now, the difference is I think, Travis has a little more leeway than what Tony ever had when he was running routes and doing things. We ran a precise offense that was like, okay, at this point, he's going to be turning the ball's got to be on him at this point. If not, you're going off to the next person. Where this gives him more leeway or more freedom to be able to play in space and everything else.
Yeah,
I think
or like a backyard football.
That makes a big difference, the matchup football between the two. And that's going to be a key is Patrick and him on the same page all day, and are they feeling the way they should be between one another? If not, he's got to find another way to make that happen. But yeah, to me, they're two unbelievable tight ends, and they're still a little different because one can get the self-read of doing what he does. He gets freedom, where I think, at that point in football for where we were, those freedoms weren't there. It was, hey, you're going to run this route and you're going to be there. You're going to do this. You're going to turn at that point, and that's where the ball's going to be. And I think that makes a big difference. And that's also how the NFL has changed. They give you a lot more read routes. They give you a lot more freedom to be able to move around and do different things. Even as, line play goes, that's changed a little bit too. And, the RPO piece of being able to come off hard and yet not, and still try to figure out, is the ball being handoff or is it being passed? For when we were playing, we could go, oh yeah, we know this is a run because we called it a run or a pass in the huddle, and he either went one or the other. So we knew what the play was, so we could focus in on just that piece of it without having to do it while you're on the run.
Yeah, again, Chiefs history is no short of tight ends. We go from a guy like Tony Gonzalez to Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, we know that they're going to dial in on Travis Kelce. And you said a little bit, what can Juju do? Because, Juju's a great player, but there's some times where it's kind of like, is he on the field? Is he injured? Where is he at? You don't really hear his name. Who do you think can be the X factor in this game? We know when you played, there was an X factor out there. That guy's name was Dante Hall. Who could be the X factor this upcoming Sunday for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, I think there's a couple of different, you go to that, we haven't seen, I'm trying to figure out what happened to my other tight end.
Jody Fortson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He sort of disappeared. I haven't seen him in a while, really. To me, the tight end sets might be really big for him to have, 3 bigs out there as well to add on to that. And then actually sneaking in, 2 running backs and putting one out there split is going to be another piece for me. I think that would be two important pieces of how to do it.
Right.
I've seen, Sky Moore a little bit, but I haven't seen a lot of him,
Yeah.
So I'm going, if I can't see more of Sky Moore, I'd rather see one of my backs back out there running those routes and doing those things to make those matchups happen.
Yeah. Sky Moore, great player. Jody Fortson, former basketball player, never really played football in college. Similar to Tony Gonzalez, he's, I think, 6'6", almost 6'7". So big guy, he was a little injured toward the later part of the year. Noah Gray came in, had a big catch last week. So I would like to see, because last year we didn't see too much 13 personnel. We didn't see a lot of 12 personnel.
No.
But now all of a sudden, Andy Reid's going a little old school. He's throwing these tight ends out there. And if they can get out and run the ball and run some of these sets, because, back when you played, you could throw Jason Dunn out there and you could throw Tony Gonzalez out there. And, the defense, are they, going to run it here? Is, Tony Gonzalez going to go and have a little pass out there? Is going to be Jason Dunn out there blocking? So you never know. So, I would like to see Jody Fortson out there in the red zone. I thought he was going to be a bigger red zone target because, again, he has the basketball frame, knows how to box out. Injuries, happen. But I think the tight ends could be a huge, huge X factor. Before we get into our last segment here, we got some fun questions for Will here. We're going to ask him some fun questions. So the first question I'm going to ask you, and this one's fun one. If you could take two guys that you played with and just insert them in this AFC Championship game in their prime, who are you going with and why?
Ooh, that's tough.
I know one of your former teammates may be listening and say, come on, man, we may have to break some hearts here today. Well, who are you going with? You're putting him with Patrick Mahomes or you're putting him on the defensive side of the ball. You get two guys. Who are you picking?
Oh, I get defense too. That's even worse.
Yeah. You can pick a defense and offense, or you can pick two of each. Doesn't matter.
Well, of course, on defense, I'll go with DT.
You got to go Derek Thomas.
I just want to see what havoc he would create in this system right now.
I think the sacks he put up then, I can only imagine the sacks he would put up now would be insane. So you got to go Derek Thomas.
Yes, but see, that's hard on defense because it'd be cool to see Del Carter too on defense.
Yeah.
Just because of his athletic.
Secondary. You need a secondary. I see a lot. I put this question out on my on some of my social medias, and some people are like, "Well, Del Carter," and you got the secondary, and I'm like, "That's not a bad choice either." But Derek Thomas.
Well, but if I'm looking to help the team out, then it would be defensive.
Oh, so Derek Thomas is just kind of just the entertainment purposes.
Yeah, I know. But if it was help him out, it'd be like, I'd go, Albert Lewis would be one. And I would beef up my secondary quite a bit. Offensive wise, it's tough because I had so many great players I got a chance to play with. Joe Money would be good to have it as the quarterback, but if I got Mahomes, then I don't need
Mahomes.
That's different. But you could put Marcus in the backfield. That would be sort of ugly. That'd be different.
Marcus jumping over the goal line, on the Bengals. Nothing would please me more to see Marcus out. Obviously, got like Reese, Larry. Those. I got
a plethora of backs back there. That would be nice. But Marcus would be really a lot of fun to watch back there. What he could do in his prime. That's for sure.
Marcus Allen. And on this Chiefs team, with some of these guys on the offensive line, I think would be very entertaining. Another good one for you. What's maybe a story or two that maybe no one has really heard you're telling for the first time that you have from your playing days? A fun story, maybe a crazy story that you've never really told anybody that you could share with the fans here.
Well, I don't know if they probably heard it before, but I don't know, man. To me, it was my rookie year. We're playing Houston. We're actually in that game, man. We're playing.
Is that the 1993 playoff
1993 playoff game. It's back and forth, all kinds of crazy stuff. That was the game that Keith Cash is throwing footballs at Buddy Ryan on
Ryan's poster.
Touchdown. But there was a part of the game where we're in the middle of the game. I'm a rookie. I'm still wide-eyed looking around like, okay, game's good. We're okay. We're still fighting. And my center gives this speech. And, when you watch you watch a game, you watch movies and you see a guy break down and give a speech.
Was it Grunhard?
Yeah, he gave us an unbelievable rah-rah speech in the middle of the game. I mean, we're in the field and, it's one of those things like you see it in a movie and you be like, man, that never happens.
That's corny. That's easy.
Yeah, this is made up. And I'm sitting here and he's giving this speech about where he grew up and why he was here and what he was fighting for and all this other stuff. And I'm looking around like everybody else, like, is this for real? But this was gritty, man. And it was just cool to sit there and listen to it because before that, my rookie year, we were going to play Reggie White on Monday night. And
wow.
I'm just, our locker rooms, they have it was a split locker room back then. They had a little back area and a front area. And in the back hour, guys were playing dominoes and everything else. And Timmy comes back there and he just comes back there and he starts kicking over stuff and just yelling and screaming, man, what's going on? Why did this? I was like, what is wrong with this guy? He goes, you guys realize who's over in that other locker room?
Love it.
It's Reggie White, man. And he's going to kill you when you hit the field. He's going to take you, he's going to throw you around, and he's going to do this and do that. You better get your mind right. You better get ready. And I'm sitting here going, okay, so this is the NFL. Time to get yourself ready for a game to get pumped up.
So you would say that was every rookie has it. You're kind of welcome to the NFL moment.
My welcome to the NFL moment was training camp. So, yeah, man, you go to training camp and, the first thing we did back then was separator drills, which they call Oklahoma drills.
Oklahoma drills, yeah.
And it's Shields versus Salamua. And I'm going, what is Salamua? And
Salamua, big man? That's a
big man, man. And I was like, okay, this is fun. Let me figure out what this is going to look like. But then our first scrimmage was against John Randall, Henry Thomas.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
John Randall. Trash talking John Randall.
John Randall, Henry Thomas. That whole lot. There's what, two, actually 3 of them should be two of them are in the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame, yeah.
And the other 2 probably should be in the Hall of Fame. They were that good. But I'm sitting up here getting ready. Yeah, okay, I'm going to get some of this. I'm going to do this, do that. Them dudes are talking to each other. They're yelling back and forth. They're doing all this other stuff. And I'm sitting here like, okay, I got this guy. Say, he's gone. Like, whoa, what just happened? You're like, he just went around you like you were standing there. I was like, I know. I was like, oh, man. So then the next play, he gets up and they start talking back and forth again. Yeah, no, you. And I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. He goes here, he looks in, I look in, he goes by me again like nobody's business. And I go, yep, this is my introductory. I got to get a lot better because these guys are whooping me up.
You got
to me all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, watching that line work was amazing. And watching their pre-practice for a D-line group was unreal, watching what they did in pre-practice beforehand. Just all the drill work they did to get as good as they were.
Wow. My brother is a diehard Vikings fan. I'm originally from Minnesota. My dad's from Kansas. So I went with the Chiefs. He went to the Vikings. So he'll be pleased to hear that John Randall was giving it to you a little bit. Last question before we move into our last thing is my dad would be very, very mad at me if I didn't ask you, what was it like playing with Derek Thomas?
It was cool. It was one of those things. It was really cool to play with DT. Have him as a teammate. It was one of those things that him and Neil. So me and Neil went to the same college. So every morning we get ready for training camp. It was a tradition that he'd go, "Hey, Will," here. I go, "Hi, Neil. How are you? You ready to go to work?" So like that old cartoon when you used to have the dog and walk with the pail, and they're getting ready to fight each other. That's sort of where we were. It was like. But watching DT work at practice was unreal. He wasn't the greatest practice player, but when we did one-on-ones, he would sit there and he goes, talk. He'd just sit there. He came up and got his hand in and he goes, all right, hey, Will, this is A. And he'd run up the field real quick, A. This is B. And he would go here and go underneath. He said, forget it. I'll just skip it and go to D. And he did some moves and just left people. It was just amazing how he could basically just dictate what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. Unbelievable guy, unbelievable player. It was awesome to be there and to be able to say that he was your teammate.
Yeah, you got a front row seat every week to, because you're an offensive lineman. So when you got to see Derek Thomas, just every game wreck offensive lineman, you're thinking, glad that's not me, because, I'll go back and it just feels like every single game I'd watch full game tapes. Now, turn to my dad and I would just go, like, this guy got a sack every game. Like, he just got a sack almost every single game. And he was like, that's who DT was.
Yeah, he was unbelievable athlete. Definitely could make things happen.
Yeah, Derek Thomas, great player. Gone too soon. Love Derek Thomas. Before we get you out of here, Will, is there anything, you want to shout out? Where can people kind of keep up with you nowadays? If you want to shout anything out, the platform's yours. Go ahead.
Well, I'm actually at least tech savvy to a certain point. I do have Instagram. I do have Twitter. I do have all of the handles around, so you can follow me there. Always doing stuff in the community, helping build new bridges across the board as far as health and wellness. So I still have the Will to Succeed Foundation. And you can find out whatever we're doing at willshields.com, which is where we house all of the different things we do, as well as the Will to Succeed and other projects that we have going in the Kansas City area.
Yes, guys, definitely go check that out. That is big. That is huge. So you said willshields.com?
Yeah.
So willshields.com. Go check that out, everybody. And, of course, guys, go check him out on Twitter or Instagram. I bet he will be tweeting a little bit on the game. We got this big game Sunday. Final scoring prediction for the game Sunday. You close your eyes. It's Monday. You wake up. ESPN's on. Who's winning the game? Give the Chiefs fans a little, just like Tim Grunhout. Shout out Tim Grunhout for hyping you up back in the day. What would Timmy be doing, and how would he be hyping up these Chiefs fans this upcoming Sunday, trying to convince them that the Chiefs are going to beat the Bengals?
Oh man, he'd be jumping off of something and he'd be throwing trash cans around. That's what it is for him to get you so hyped. Yeah, but I think, the way it works for me is, I don't want it to be close. I don't want a close game. I want it to be put away at halftime or even third quarter to where you're up at least 3 to 4 touchdowns at that point. To me, that is the way it need to work out and need to make it happen, because if not, you're not really putting a statement out there of trying to prove how good you are.
Right. So what is your scoring prediction? Do you have where do you see kind of the Chiefs? I know you said you don't want to be close.
Yeah.
What is your final scoring prediction?
Final score, probably 34-27.
34-27, that's about the same era where a lot of people have. 34-27. You already hear from Will Shields. Again, guys, if you guys need to be hyped up, go knock on Tim Grunhout's door. He'll get you hyped up for the game, Chiefs fans. I know we're a little worried about this game. Will Shields, one of the honors of my life having you on the podcast. I could sit here for hours and have you talk about the good old days of the Chiefs. We are in the good old days, but back in the 90s with Marty and Derek Thomas and John Randall going after you and stuff like that. Pleasure having you on the show.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Guys, we'll see you next time on the TPT podcast. Next time we see you, hopefully we'll be celebrating a Kansas City Chiefs win over the Cincinnati Bengals.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell, follow us on all social media, and check out our videos each week.